the two things that I think is very important, I think is the most important thing, is politics and religion, because, and so often in conversation, though, this is what's unhealthy, is we talk about things that are outside of our control. That's where it becomes even a mental health issue, I think, is when you focus on the things that are outside your control. But when you talk about politics and religion from a personal responsibility standpoint, then that's where not only is that the cure in my mind to mental health problems, but it's also the cure to a lot of our societal ills. So from my standpoint, from a government standpoint, it's always, I believe, in most of the solutions to our problems lies with the individual, and how can I help that individual, empower that individual to fix the problems for themselves. I went to my parent, who wants this other policy that I don't really want, but the House wants it, she wants it, the Senate wanted school choice, she wanted school choice, but the House didn't. I'm like, why can't we just swap? Let's make a deal, so that everybody walks out of this family gathering happy. And she looked at me and she's like, we're not going to leave this building without school choice. And I'm scared because I'm sitting with the governor, and I'm like,
she's a powerful. She's onto something. I mean, she's done some things.
Yeah. And so as a submissive child, I did not push back and say, well, when is this going to happen? It's going to happen now. Is it going to happen next session? Whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm going to trust my parent that she's telling me the truth here. Well, so we passed ethanol, and school choice didn't happen. So now I'm a child. I can throw a temper tantrum. I could go out and, make a mess for other people. So I basically just sat back and stewed about it, and pouted. And but here's the beauty of the governor. She found who was playing games with her. They were not being good kids in the family.
Right on, man. So, I mean, politics, you found your way there because you felt like there was a call for you to answer. Did someone ask you to get into politics, or was that just something in you that's like, I think I should do this. I think I want to do this. I think I need to do this. How was it? How was it for you in the beginning?
Yeah, great question. I think it was a combination of things since I was growing up, different influences in my life. So things like 4-H, my private school education, like they constantly were pounding into us, Christ-like attributes of laying your life down for other people. And so they would intentionally get us involved in community projects or baking cookies for the sheriffs or, just different things that probably average kids don't get the opportunity to do. And but one of the biggest drivers of my life for influences was my grandmother. And she was heavily active in every community activity. And the older I got, the more I realized that throughout her life, like she went through a lot of pain and a lot of struggle. And her response to that was, rather than to play the victim card, I think how she dealt with her grief and pain was to serve other people. And that didn't become really apparent to me until I was older, and I was taking care of her later in her life when her health was failing, that she would open up and talk about some of that stuff.
Right on.
So just those biblical principles kept happening, and so I've just always adapted that posture of public service and serving other people, and that just led to every choice that I've made in my life, whether serving the Dayton Rodeo, the Farm Bureau. I just wanted to step into those roles because there was different ways I could serve and grow through those experiences.
It's awesome. It's awesome. So did you have like a formative conversation or experience with your grandmother where she like taught this to you, or it was purely by observation and just living life together? Just
observation and living life together. I would say specifically the things that come to mind is like during 4-H, a lot of 4-H kids have to pick up pop cans on the side of the road, and she was the one that was organizing those things, and most kids don't want to do that, right? They complain on that day, and I was one of those kids. And so, but since she was my grandmother, I was voluntold to, you will do this. But one of the lessons that I learned through that is it became apparent to me that there are pop cans in our lives that all over the place. Like if you see a pop can, pick it up. If you have the opportunity to pick it up, and it's for one, the pop can's worth 5 cents, so it's worth money. Second, it's good for the community to pick that up, and also I think it's part of our biblical principle is to be good stewards of our creation. So it's funny that is the picture that comes up in my mind as a public servant is, where is the pop can? Pick it up.
Right on.
So
right on. I love a good analogy.
Yeah.
that tickles a part of me that just, I don't know, a good analogy like that, which, have you, so already, if anyone was wondering, the Christian themes and the Christian living is important to you, important to me. Absolutely. Have you ever read Mere Christianity before? So good. So reading that with my men's Bible study right now. And so 2 points. One point is that through this book, it was written in the 40s and 50s, compiled in the 50s, written during World War II when Britain was getting firebombed by the Nazis, for a little historical context, right? Which, not for you, I know you know this. This is for the people who maybe have not dove into Mere Christianity. But one point he just made in what we read was that probably more people believe in God than don't believe in God. And I feel like I personally have maybe shied away from God conversations out of almost like fear of them judging me, or just like, well, I don't, almost like society or the news or social media got it in my brain that I'm the minority for believing in God. And I'm not sure that's true right now. And I think that in, maybe not the world, I won't speak for the world, maybe the world is, I'll get you to weigh in on this, is the world, the majority of the world believes in God. And maybe in America we're like 50-50 right now, or do you think it's different than that?
Well, everybody believes in something, and so it depends on what that God is. And we're all people of faith. That's how He designed us. And
like it takes faith to believe in God, and it takes faith to not believe in God, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're hinting at there?
We all have faith in something, and that faith might be in government. That faith might be in humanity for humanists, or and personally, especially like during the COVID time and my time in politics, like, to me, the biggest proof that there is a God is that the world is still going around, right? He is sovereign. He is in control. And because it's with some of the clowns that are in politics and stuff like that, if we are dependent on them for to take care of us, or that they care about us, like, we're in big trouble. So
that's, I mean, the perfect way, I think, to enter a God conversation. And there's a quote by Tozer, A.W. Tozer, an old theologian. I don't think he's living anymore. He used to say, what you think about God is the most important thing about you. Because a lot of your belief system, your belief system, my belief system, is we're operating off of that. It's like an operating system. It's like a Mac or a Samsung or whatever phone you have, right? It has an operating system, and you function off of what that operating system tells you can do. So your belief system is that important, right? Like, it tells you how you ought to live. So everyone has a belief system, and I feel like it's a difficult conversation to have, but everyone is a person of faith, one way or the other. So entering a conversation, just like you said, I think has given me a lot of confidence to just go there,
Yeah.
Because
so when I was a kid, my dad and I, he would actually get on to me or get after me about this. They always said that the three things you don't talk about is politics, religion, and sex. And I don't talk about sex. But the two things that I think is very important, I think is the most important thing, is politics and religion. And so often in conversation, though, this is what's unhealthy, is we talk about things that are outside of our control. That's where it becomes even a mental health issue, I think, is when you focus on the things that are outside your control. But when you talk about politics and religion from a personal responsibility standpoint, then that's where not only is that the cure in my mind to mental health problems, but it's also the cure to a lot of our societal ills. So from my standpoint, from a government standpoint, it's always, I believe, in most of the solutions to our problems lies with the individual, and how can I help that individual, empower that individual to fix the problems for themselves.
Man, yeah. It's good.
But
it's good right there. Sign, seal it, deliver it, put a stamp on it. Yeah, empower individuals. Boom. I mean, that's why I'm a chiropractor. I'm not a chiropractor to make money or be be a famous doctor. I'm there to try to teach people how to be as healthy as possible.
Yeah.
You know, so I love it.
So speaking of, so when did you start being or think about being a chiropractor?
Yeah, I had a phenomenal experience with a chiropractor when I was 17 years old. I had an ankle injury. I was trying to be an athlete. It was track season. I couldn't run. Track was like my thing. I was supposed to be fast, and went to a chiropractor, and he did things to my body that I did not know were possible. And I could not believe how big of an impact it had on me and just how I felt, my ability to move. So I was pretty much sold at that point. And then speech class senior year, I had 2 very good teachers, and I did a project where I shadowed that same chiropractor, and it was pretty much a done deal from there. I just felt like I had the vision. You know, it God ordained. I'm not going to pretend that it wasn't. You know, I think he showed me my calling, and I was set from then on, 17 on. So, you know, from 17 to how old was I? 25. You know, it took 8 years from being a senior in high school and 4 years of undergrad, 3.5 years of the specialized school, chiropractor school, and then set up here. I've been here for 6 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm a recent convert to chiropractor.
Oh yeah.
Stuff. So I never went to a chiropractor in my life till a few years ago. I go to church with a chiropractor in Boone, and he has a membership program. He doesn't deal with insurance yet, I don't think, but so like he has a yearly membership, and then you can go once a week. And I just tried him out for a couple times, and all of a sudden my headaches were starting to go away, and I was sleeping better, and I'm sold. Like once a week, I have to get adjusted.
Yeah.
So
it's good. I love it. Brain and nervous system, man. Oh gosh. Hey, Jesse Green, what are you doing next week? You want to come back and just do this again? Right on. Well, man. Okay. Where should we go from here? I want to introduce you just a little bit more. You've given a great introduction, but the internet is a beautiful place. Jesse Green, a 5th-generation farmer. Born and raised just outside of Harcourt, Iowa, farms corn, beans, oats, hay, bucking horses for rodeo and riding purposes, and longhorn cattle for roping with his father, brother, and nephew. He's previously taught Bible classes at Community Christian School in Fort Dodge. Senator Green is currently volunteering at Trinity Lutheran School in Boone. That's still accurate, absolutely. You have been engaged in the community since joining the Webster County Farm Bureau and Dayton Rodeo and Celebration Committee at age 24, which is young for getting involved in all that sort of stuff. Served the Dayton Rodeo for over 6 years in various positions, including chairman for many of those years, the youngest chairman in Dayton Rodeo history, which spans over 80 years. Additionally, he received the Greater Fort Dodge Growth Alliance Top 10 Under 40 Young Professionals Award in 2017. It's a good little intro to you. And are you going to run again? Should I hit you with that question, or should we keep that on ice?
Definitely.
Right here?
I announced last week and gave the public announcement, and I'm super excited. I don't know what happened to the last 3 years. Like it just flew by
fast.
And I was reading an article a couple months ago that explained that in large corporations, they usually have a 3-year plan by how they incorporate new employees into their corporations to make them feel comfortable, make them feel included and have their lane within their corporation. When I read that made my legislative experience make sense. Like it wasn't until this year that I felt comfortable doing what I'm doing. The first year was chaos, especially with COVID, some of the political issues that we were dealing with, and I just felt like I was walking on pins and needles all the time. I never went to college. I never had a real professional working experience, so like that was all scary to me as well. And I came fresh off the farm into the legislature, so that created some struggles with that. But now I just feel so strong and capable of actually being able to navigate policy, be able to get good policies passed. Got a great relationship with the governor. I love her. Got a great relationship with my Senate colleagues. And so I feel like if I left now, I would be doing a disservice to my colleagues. Also to this district. They've invested a lot into me with their vote. And if I am more capable now than when I was 3 years ago, then I feel like I owe it to them for another term. And actually, you'll find this interesting. The average Republican usually lasts about 8 to 12 years. That's their political career.
Okay.
And so in this environment where we have Republican control in the House, the Senate, and with the Republican governor, there's no excuse for me not to be able to accomplish the things that I want within this time frame. And so if I can't accomplish the things that I want within 8 to 12 years, then there's a problem with me, and
For sure.
I should probably leave. So and that'll become evident to me if I have hit a brick wall and I'm no longer effective. But there's a few senators that you can tell they're just existing and they're just sitting there, and that is my worst nightmare. Is that I never want to be that in any, whether it's my personal life, my corporate, but especially in public service. Like when you're representing 60,000 people and you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs for a title, like that is disgusting. And I never want to be that.
It's obvious that's like not even in your DNA. Like you're not, like you're based on service. You're in politics because you want to serve and make a difference. Not because, you should spend a few minutes just breaking down Iowa politics. Like, talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old, to pull a quote from Michael Scott in The Office. Is just talk to me like I know absolutely nothing. How does politics work? You're part of the Senate, but then there's the House, which is totally different, and they do a different part of the legislative process. And then you obviously have the governor, who's our Iowa president, right? Is a fair way to look at it. So can you just like break it down as easily as possible?
The easiest picture is a family. So not all family members think alike. Every family has its struggles, and it's there's so many. Basically, all illustrations of politics can come from family. So first we got to start with the definition of politics. So the definition of politics is the process by influencing policy that impacts more than one person. So if you're married, you're a politician. And
boy.
the question is, are you a good one or a bad one? Mm-hmm. And are you bringing about policy that is producing fruit? I also like the illustration of a garden. Like, God created us to be gardeners, and gardening is just rearranging raw material for human flourishing. That's what it's doing. So in policy making, I'm always thinking like, is there a weed over here that I need to pull? Is there something I need to plant over here? Just like that gardening picture. But right now, it's under Republican control. It's the largest Republican majority since 1972.
Okay.
So this is a very unique time in Iowa history. But within this Republican family, there's differences. And it was really evident 3 years ago. The school choice conversation was the classic one. There's about 15 House members that did not believe in school choice. And by that, I'll define that as taxpayer dollars following a child into whatever environment that they want to.
The voucher system.
Yep.
Yes.
Vouchers. The dark vouchers.
Yeah. And those things.
So that's where philosophically some of us disagreed. And I'll never forget in our family dispute, I had a response to make. Like, how do I respond to this? Do I treat him like a brother and I'm just going to poo-poo this and like say, oh, it's okay. Like you 15 out of 90 some Republicans, like, is it right that 15 Republicans out of 90 some Republicans are going to block the governor's priority, my priority, why I ran for office? That was such a tense time. So I went to my parent, which was the governor, and I said, hey, how do you want me to respond to this? And she's like, well, we have these other policies that are on the table right now, and you have not acted on these policies. One was the ethanol bill at that time.
Which you said was one of the hardest on your conscience?
Yes.
We'll put that on the back burner and save that one. Okay.
So I went to my parent, who wants this other policy that I don't really want, but the House wants it. She wants it. The Senate wanted school choice. She wanted school choice, but the House didn't. I'm like, why can't we just swap? Let's make a deal, so that everybody walks out of this family gathering happy. And she looked at me and she's like, we're not going to leave this building without school choice. And I'm scared because I'm sitting with the governor, and I'm like,
she's a powerful. She's onto something. I mean, she's done some things.
Yeah. And so as a submissive child, I did not push back and say, well, when is this going to happen? It's going to happen now. Is it going to happen next session? Whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm going to trust my parent that she's telling me the truth here. Well, so we passed ethanol, and school choice didn't happen. So now I'm a child. I can throw a temper tantrum. I could go out and, make a mess for other people. So I basically just sat back and stewed about it, and pouted. And but here's the beauty of the governor. She found who was playing games with her. They were not being good kids in the family. and she booted them out. That's what
Booted
she did.
Booted them out.
She got involved in the primaries, which there was a lot of angry people that figured out who their representative was that was not supporting school choice. So they put up candidates to go against him, and then she actually got involved in those races. Like, you don't see governors ever do something like that, and she did, and she won every single one of them.
Wow.
And then some of my colleagues were like, well, that's going to cost her in the general election. You know, like, is she going to get reelected? She won by 20 points.
Which is a lot.
That's a historic landslide victory in Iowa. And so she followed through. She had a pulse of the will of the people of Iowa, our family, our big family. She knew what the people of Iowa wanted, and she delivered on it.
The majority of the people in Iowa are pro-voucher, what's there a better word for that? School choice. Should we call it school choice?
We can call it whatever.
Call it whatever you want.
We'll use the Democrats' language of vouchers. That's fine.
Okay.
I'll use their language. That's fine.
Is there an origin to that? They.
Our brothers on the other side of the aisle.
Yes.
They like to use vouchers because it pulls well for them as far as like having a negative connotation. The only difference between a voucher and an education savings account, like what we passed, is that vouchers go directly towards tuition, and education savings accounts are just that. They're an account where a certain amount of money is put in, and let's say your school only charges $4,000 for tuition. That leftover money stays in that account for that child, either for books, tuition, or for tutoring, and it just stays there, and it keeps rolling over as that child gets older and older. And then whatever money is not used goes back to the state of Iowa. So in my mind, that's a more responsible way of handling school choice, because you're, and it's also more beneficial to the family because you can use it for tutoring and stuff like that, whereas vouchers is just for tuition. But,
okay, so there's two parts to it that aren't.
Well, so what we passed was not vouchers. The Democrats call it that because a lot of it's going to tuition, so it's like a half-truth.
Okay.
But there is a technical difference between an education savings account and a voucher.
Which education savings account passed, voucher
passed.
not passed.
Yep, did not pass.
No. Okay. So money right now does not follow the kid to the school district.
So if a kid goes to Boone, we'll use Boone Trinity. The parents go there and they say, hey, we like the school. The school will say, hey, go ahead and try to qualify for an education savings account. So right now there is a limit as far as like what your income is if you qualify or not for an education savings account.
My personal income.
Mm-hmm.
Like my, sure.
Yep.
Of the parents and the family.
Yep. So then once they're qualified, which 90% of parents would, then as soon as the child is enrolled, and they're an accredited private school, and that's the other kicker, is that they have to be accredited, then the state of Iowa will pay that school for the tuition. So the money is actually not ever in the child's hands. It's just sitting in an account to the side.
Right. So from this, will we see schools in Iowa run out of money, fold? Is that a legit possibility that's going to happen to someone?
So from a 30,000-foot view, we got to remember that schools have been closing down for a long time.
Sure.
So everybody used to have a one-room schoolhouse, and then it's changed to the system that we have now. Number one, education is the number one priority for everybody. I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat. We all want a quality education. And so it's what we differ on is how do we get to that point. Mm-hmm. Right now we have 320 school districts in the state of Iowa, roughly. To put that in perspective, Florida only has 70.
Oh, interesting.
And so Hawaii only has one school board that's appointed by the governor. They're not even elected for the entire state of Hawaii.
Wow.
So that actually gives me a deeper appreciation for our public school system here in Iowa. There is so much local accountability, and I really value that structure. I think as time goes on, there's always going to be a population shift to the metro. And so you will continue to see some school districts shut down over time. It's just a plain and simple
fact of the matter.
It's
been happening. It's going to keep happening.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep. And so then we have to ask, what is the source of the problem with school districts that close? Is it a money problem or is it an enrollment problem? And so the fact of the matter is that every year that we've had control, we have always given a 2.5 to 4% increase in our responsibility for schools, the state's portion. Half the school's income comes from property taxes. A small portion comes from the federal government, about $2,500, and then there's $7,600 that comes from the state. That $7,600 is the only thing that we are responsible for from the state legislative standpoint. So it's real easy for everybody to point the blame at the state. It's real easy to blame one person for your problems.
Sure.
Right? Instead of taking personal accountability for your budgeting practices.
Is that per kid, by the way?
Yep.
So it's $7,600 per kid from the state of Iowa, $2,500 per kid from the Fed, and then there's a portion from local property tax.
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
The largest portion. Yeah.
The largest portion is from local property tax.
Yep.
So if a school, state of Iowa has a big influence, but that's not the full story. If a school is running out of money or mismanaging money or something with money is happening, you can't just point fingers at the state of Iowa and say it's your fault.
And it's not 100% true for me to point the fingers at the local authorities either. But when you get in a toxic political environment, it's real easy just to shift blame.
Sure.
And that's the biggest problem with Iowa politics right now is when people shift blame on other people and don't take responsibility for their own stuff. And so when a local official says that a big reason why our property taxes are going up is because of the state of Iowa, Senator Green, go talk to Senator Green. They're not 100% wrong.
So property taxes in the state of Iowa are going up, correct? Like this is happening.
This is happening.
This is happening. Okay.
So they can say if we're not using our state supplemental aid and funding them enough, that is indirectly going to increase property taxes. There is a shred of truth to that, depending on the size of the school district, enrollment, and stuff like that. But truly, at the end of the day, the spenders are responsible for their spending, and so when it comes to property taxes and funding your schools and stuff like that, the vast majority of the responsibility is on that district, the school board, and whatnot. My job, though, what I want to do for them is I want to create more flexibility with how they can spend their property tax dollars. I have just acknowledged to you that I believe we have more local accountability than most states in the United States. I want to trust them more than what we're doing. And so now that school choice is passed and that we have continued to fund education 2.5 to 4% increase, they can take that to the bank every single year that we will fulfill that obligation. Now I feel like my role is to make their lives easier and give them more control over the big bucket, which is property tax. So I got in the weeds there. I'm sorry.
Well, hey, I've been waiting for someone to break it down. And I mean, the whole property tax situation too is another interesting one that we don't need to get into right now. But education, a hot button, certainly a hot button. And I think a lot of people were like, voucher system, no, because looking at the end of the line, they see, well, if a school goes out of business, that's going to affect a lot of lives. That's going to uproot teachers, administrators, students. So then obviously you've done the math on that. You know that this is, if it happens, if you pass all that and the money does follow the kid, I'm using the right language, right?
Sure.
Eventually some school will close. Yeah. So then how do you feel about that? Or what do you... How do you justify that if that's an okay word?
So what I love is you're seeing the system play out right now. In Greene County, there are 6 families that if I understand correctly, that actually signed up for an ESA and I believe left Greene County schools.
Okay.
Some could argue that's a lot. Some could argue that's not a lot. To me, that's not a lot from what I'm seeing from other districts. That's because Greene County schools have a great school. You know, if you are giving a great product, people are going to want that product and not leave that.
They're going to stay right there.
They're going to stay right there.
Right on.
Now, conversely, in Fort Dodge, Community Christian School in Fort Dodge saw a 25% increase in their enrollment in their private school. That's what's kind of cool about being a state senator is that you can see these different schools and their different problems and what's happening. That did not surprise me a bit that Community Christian went up 25%. There's some bigger problems in Fort Dodge Community School District. They're also a 4A school, so they can afford to lose some students and not go broke either.
Sure.
So,
because by being bigger, there's opportunity for money. There's money avenues that smaller schools don't have.
Correct.
Sure. Okay.
Correct. And so, I think in Boone, I don't think any student went from Boone High or Boone Public School to Trinity to Sacred Heart. I think a couple went to Trinity, Boone Trinity. But again, they're a big enough school that they can kind of absorb a few students leaving. But here's the thing at the end of the day. Those families that qualified for education savings account, they're happy. At the end of the day, this is about serving our taxpayers.
Sure.
And these are their dollars. And if by going to a different environment is giving them the education that they need, isn't that a priority number one? And that's what's driven my vision on this all along. And so what I believe has just happened within the state of Iowa, which is monumental, we're the first state in the Midwest to do it. We're attracting families now from Illinois, Minnesota, that are crossing the border into Mason City and Davenport because they know that some of their tax dollars are going to go to the things that they value, whether that's a faith-based education, whatever. We also have a better tax climate than Minnesota and Illinois. So we are going to see a huge demographic shift in the next few years because of these policies that we put in place. And I would argue this is going to help public schools in the long run because we are in such a good fiscal position in the state of Iowa that we will fund public schools however they need to be funded to stay afloat, minus just that natural demographic shift that's happening over time to the metro. But I think by the end of our lives, the property tax will be so bad in the metro that parents and stuff will be coming back here. That is my theory.
So rural living is not dead and going away.
It is
by
not.
Any means.
I think here within this area, Jefferson on the way to Des Moines, I think is going to be thriving by the end of our lives. Now, further northwest, the further away you get from the metro, who knows?
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Do we have a tax surplus in the state of Iowa?
Yeah, so right now we have a huge surplus. It's about $5 billion. And so we get attacked on that we're hoarding tax dollars. But the reason that we're holding on to those dollars is because we keep doing tax cuts. And we want to make sure that if we do go in an economic downturn that we aren't in a fiscal problem.
Sure.
And then maybe have to raise taxes or something like that. So
I was going somewhere. I left you out to dry there with that question because did you, when we were messaging earlier, Iowa, are we about to be, or is there plans to be a no state income tax state?
That's definitely the dream. And if we wanted to right now, if we raise the sales tax by a penny and wanted to eliminate the income tax, we could do it right now.
Okay.
And that would be a tough vote for me. Like, I think the economic benefits of being a no income tax state, we underestimate what that would happen. One reason Northwest Iowa, the population keeps decreasing, nobody thinks about this, but it's because people also go to Sioux Falls where there's no income tax.
South Dakota.
Yep.
Right on.
And now because we have a better tax climate, you're seeing Illinois and Minnesota people coming into Iowa, conversely.
Because our taxes are lower than theirs.
Yep.
Yes.
That wasn't always the case. Like Illinois sometimes has better tax situations for corporations. But now that we are in full control and we can get away from tax credits and some of those things, we can simplify the tax code. And hypothetically, if we raise a sales tax by a penny right now, we could eliminate the income tax right now. And if that bill was put in front of me right now, that would be a tough choice. Because somebody could attack me for raising the sales tax, right? And that's fair. But I think realistically speaking, within 6 to 8 years, without raising the sales tax, we can eliminate the income tax.
Which a penny, not a percent, but a penny. You know, there's a 7% sales tax, right? So it's not like 7 to 8%, which would be a bigger jump. You're saying by a penny.
No, 7 to 8 by a percent.
By a percent. Okay, got it.
Apologize.
Yep. No, I'm with you. Yep.
But so the reason why states, this is how wonderful of a situation we're in right now. The reason a lot of states don't get rid of their income tax is because they're not responsible enough with their budgets to control their spending. Sales tax is very volatile as far as the state's revenue. Depending on the economy, it looks like that.
Sure.
But your income tax is a more stable source of revenue. And so there's that theory of, well, we should diversify our revenues to make sure that our state revenues are consistent. I get the argument, but I think the bigger conversation is to have is just be responsible with your spending, prepare for the hard times, just like a family.
Sure.
And, and let's make a healthier tax climate.
How many different avenues of revenue are there for the state of Iowa? Like the big ones. What are the big ones?
Sales is by far the most.
Like 50% or more than that?
It's got to be more than that. I shouldn't spit it out. I don't want to give false information, but it's definitely the biggest chunk. And we have the second highest corporate tax rate. When I first started, we had the second highest corporate tax rate in the nation. We were the sixth highest, I believe, on income tax, and now we're in the top 10 lowest.
Okay.
That's just happening within 3 years.
Crazy.
The other big thing was tax credits, where we had the second highest usages of tax credits. And what made that happen is that for decades we have had Democrat and Republican control at the same time. So it's pretty hard to have negotiations on tax cuts in a climate like that. So what you saw was both Democrats and Republicans doing favors to their special interest groups with tax credits. So even though we had the second highest corporate tax rate, that's what it looked like on the surface, but we had so many tax credits to counter that it actually wasn't as unhealthy of a climate as it looked.
Sure.
But now that it's all within Republican control, we don't have to do special interest favors anymore. The only special interest that we have is making a fair climate for everybody. And that's what you see happening right now.
Right on. Sounds good. So tell me about the E15. Let's go back there.
Oh no.
And should we talk, if you want to, why did that weigh on your conscience? What was it about? What was the bill about? And it passed before your school issue that you wanted to see passed first, but then what was it and why did it weigh on you?
Oh boy. So, I'm a free market capitalist. I believe in the free market system and I believe in capitalism. So government coming in and telling a business what they can and cannot sell, that philosophically goes against most people's beliefs. And so I came in as a purist, right? I'm a free market capitalist. I'll never vote for a mandate, all this stuff. And so to some of my best friends, I said, I will never vote for a mandate. So number one, there's just sometimes keep your thoughts to yourself. That was lesson number one. But
don't make oaths.
Yes, don't make oaths. Yeah. So the governor unrolled this E15 plan, which is she wants E15 accessible to more accessibility to that product. And it sounds good, right? We're an ethanol state, we're an ag state, so what could be wrong with that? But in order to accomplish that, you're forcing a small business, a mom and pop gas station, to sell something that they might not want to sell. I mean, if it's profitable to sell that, we already give tax credits for selling that product. There's already incentives to sell that product. So why do we have to have the heavy hand of government saying you have to sell this? So through those negotiations, it was becoming apparent to me that we were giving enough benefits to these gas stations that nobody was going to have to close their gas station because they have to improve their infrastructure. It is so expensive to put in a different holding tank for E15 rather than diesel.
Sure.
That could cost $200,000, for a mom and pop store. How about the dispenser, the handles and the different pipes and stuff like that? That all costs money. So we kept sweetening up the pot for those retailers that, yes, we are going to force you to sell this product, but we're going to give you these goodies to make sure that you don't go out of business.
Try to balance it out.
Mm-hmm. So we ended up striking that compromise with that. But remember, in the beginning, I said I would never vote for a mandate, right? Mm-hmm. I told that to some very close friends. And the principal, the governor, called me into her office wanting me to vote for it. I was one of the votes that was blocking it within the committee. And so I had that hard conversation with my friend. I'm like, I know I promised you, but I think I have to vote for this. And I don't feel good about it, but I trust my governor. I trust the team, and I want to be a team player. She promised me school choice. I'm going to trust her. And so I voted for it, and he was disappointed in me at first, but then when he saw school choice pass, he was like, "You're forgiven."
Sure. Right on. And ultimately, after that initial setup of getting E15 into places, it is good that it's available, right?
Yes. I think in the large run, like we all come in with ideals. And as Christians, we think about this all the time. We understand what the North Star is, and getting there can have some different paths. And if you're too idealistic in your policy making, and you start going off the reservation a lot, not being a team player, then you will lose your influence pretty quickly. And so to me, it's like, what are my major issues that I will not compromise on? And in that situation, I knew I could lay my head down at night and know that no mom and pop store was going to close because of a decision I made. Once that compromise was struck, I knew I could sleep at night. Right on. My conscience was fine.
Has there been any other decision or issue you've been faced that rivals the conscious effect of that one? Where some tough stuff.
So fortunately, I've been shielded a little bit because, like the life issue, I believe in life and conception. I think the Bible is very clear on that, but I also believe in science, where I think it's pretty obvious that that there's a new life being formed right away. And so during the life, we just got done voting on the heartbeat bill, which was first voted on in 2018. The Supreme Court ruled against it. And we ended up having to pass it again. That's what happened this last summer. Well, because so I voted for it, but I had a lot of constituents that were like, "Why are you compromising? Like, this is the heartbeat bill. Why vote against it and push for life at conception?" Mm-hmm. And I had to tell them, like, if we can't pass the heartbeat bill, I sure as heck can't pass with the Supreme Court. I sure as heck can't pass life at conception. So I want to make sure that that the Supreme Court had the same language that we used before and force them to vote on it one more time. Now, if the heartbeat bill gets upheld by the Supreme Court, which I think it will, then we're going to have a fight. And then I believe I have a lot of choices to make on how hostile I am on life at conception and forcing that issue within the Senate. But meanwhile, okay, I got by on this and my conscience is fine, whatever. But some of my House colleagues did go off the reservation and vote against it because of their conscience, that they were not going to vote on a heartbeat bill because it violated their conscience. And I felt for them in that situation. Mm-hmm. And they're Christian conservatives. And for me to not line up with them on that vote, I felt bad. But it wasn't that big of a deal. I mean, the House is a separate family. They're kind of like cousins. And I... so I understand that there's differences.
How does the Senate or the House or both of them talk about an issue like that? I mean, you have the where you meet. What's it called? The hall, the
rotunda.
That you have that.
Yep.
Yes, you have that. And then, I mean, how does a conversation about an issue like the heartbeat bill happen?
Well, so we each have two representatives, and so we're always constantly communicating with our representatives. But there is when you first get elected, you start to realize that there's different loyalties that everybody has, and I wish I could go back and just not talk as much and just would have watched, because then you can start to figure out, okay, this is how politics is done in Iowa, and nobody explained it to me, but. First, obviously, your loyalty is to God. Second, your loyalty is to your constituents. But third is your chamber. So what's good for the Senate comes first before what's good for the House. And it took me a while to figure that out. To me, I just looked at it as one big Republican family. Here's the North Star for our policies and whatever it takes to get to the North Star. And so...
But the House is doing the same thing, too. They're prioritizing themselves over the Senate as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to realize that. So
Sure.
I naturally, it's a pro and a con. I feel like I naturally have more relationships in the House because I am the youngest Republican senator, and a lot of my House members are about my same age. So I have really good, solid relationships just naturally with them. So there's good communication there, and the Senate now I think is sometimes using that for me to help give them a more clearer perspective on what policies are attainable and what's not attainable, just without violating my loyalty to the Senate.
Sure.
So
right on.
If that makes any sense, but there's communication happening all the time, and I really value that. Communication's everything, and how we talk about it.
So on a particular bill or an issue, both the Republicans and Democrats will elect a representative to talk about that bill or issue. So it's like you're the elected one to stand and speak about something that the committee you serve on. Yes, that's how it works. Yeah,
so your leadership will put you on committees. And when I first got in there, I told them I want on every committee, but you can't get that. But they put me on 7 of them. And within that committee, obviously we're the majority party, so mostly it's Republicans, but there's some Democrats on there. And
in every committee, there's bipartisan representation.
Yes. Yep. And so when a bill first gets introduced, you have a subcommittee, which is 2 Republicans and a Democrat. And they sit in a public meeting, lobbyists come, constituents come, and everybody voices their opinion. If 2 out of 3 pass it, then it goes to a full committee. And whoever has a problem with that bill within that subcommittee can shape it and have that conversation. If it's a big enough problem, you can amend it. And then a committee chair, it's up to him whether or not the committee gets to vote on it. But most of the bills do get to that point. And then that's another public open meeting where everybody can lay out their concerns about it. And to me, that is one of my favorite things about serving in the legislature is the process is everything. And I trust the process. Like, if a constituent comes to me with a bill and I don't 100% agree with it, I'm inclined to file it because it might be a good bill. I might just have a bad angle on it. And I trust the process so much that if it is a bad bill, it's just going to die.
Sure.
And for a bill to get to the governor, it takes so much work. Because once you pass it out of your chamber, the Senate, you got to form those relationships in the House and try to figure out how do I get it through the House. And then you got to sell the governor on it.
Senate makes bills. That's what the Senate, they do that. And then they kick it to the House and what do they do? What's their primary purpose once the bill reaches them?
So then it starts from scratch again. Like, they'll sit down and let's say my bill goes to Ag Committee. The Ag Committee in the House, then the chairman will sit there and look at my bill and say, well, it's all right. Okay, here's a subcommittee. So he schedules the subcommittee. He doesn't have to do that. And so if I really care about that bill, I need to have a good relationship with that chairman and let it happen. Relationships. So bottom line, relationships are everything. You treat people good. Keep your negative thoughts to yourself about people. That'll come back to hurt you. And if you really care about a bill, be willing to fight for it because that's what it's going to take. Like, it takes a lot of effort to pass a bill.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
And then you could get it all the way through the Senate and all the way through the House, and then it could go sit on the governor's desk, and she could be like, "No."
Yep.
How often does that happen? Or, I mean, I know you all you're united. You have similar agendas, and you have similar things that you're trying to get to. But
what's funny is the governor gets 30 staffers. I don't get any. Woo. So that's another fun fact.
Just the Lone Ranger out there.
Yeah. Yep. Like, that's wild. And if I were to advocate for something, like whether it's a higher salary or staff, I want staff. Like, I don't need any higher salary. But so the governor's staff is keeping eyeballs on every bill that's being introduced. And let's say it's something that the governor doesn't like from the bat and she sees it's getting momentum, you'll go to the principal's office. And she'll have a conversation with you before it gets to her desk. But
so her staffers are monitoring. They're the hall monitors of this family. They're the gatekeepers. So they're learning and reporting, and she's like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Crazy. But it's not like she just sits in her office all day, right? I mean, she's here, there, and everywhere, right?
She is superhuman. God bless that woman, or any governor, like even like Vilsack, for example. He was a Democrat. I've heard so many good things about Vilsack, like from both parties. He's an early riser. He was attention to detail. Sure, he didn't agree with us in life and some of those things, but he was a very responsible, competent person. Reynolds is just superhuman on the same level. We just see eye to eye, so of course I love Reynolds more. But conversely, Governor Culver, like I've heard Democrats and Republicans just like there's a reason he was booted out pretty quickly. And that was the last time education was cut, was under Culver. They didn't fiscally manage things well, and he ended up cutting education and everything by 10% in 1 year. So even Democrats were like, get him out. So
interesting. Relationships are key.
Yeah.
Can't do something like that and expect to preserve good favor.
Yeah.
Wild. What about, obviously you're on the state. What do you think about federal politics right now? Or, I mean, what's going on that scene that's of note?
Well, my confidence in government has increased since being in there. And
that says a lot.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of people who have lost a lot of confidence in government.
My confidence in local government.
Sure.
Let's put it that way.
Yep. Understood.
My biggest fear in Washington is if you want to know where the power is, look at the money. And meanwhile, when you look at our budgets, so often the federal government is incentivizing us to do things that maybe we haven't approved of or whatever. Like they're the ultimate parent, right? Pulling the strings. And so, for example, seatbelt laws. Why do we have seatbelt laws? Because they paid us money. Like we were going to be out a lot of transportation dollars if we did not go along with that. We didn't pass it out of the legislature, like to have seatbelts.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm trying to use that as an example of a larger picture that things are upside down. It used to be a time that people in Washington would come home after 3 months of serving in Washington and live under the laws that they passed and not be career politicians. If anything, we should be in Des Moines year-round, and they should be coming home. Well, now they're pulling the purse strings, and the reality is I think that's the biggest problem that's going on is that there's not accountability for those dollars like what we have, like the conversations the school board has, like the county supervisors, the city, and the state government. They're throwing around trillions of dollars, and they can't give an answer for it. And to me, that's the most toxic thing about politics and it's dripping down on the rest of us to where everybody has a distaste for government. Not all government is bad. Now on the Trump thing,
that guy. Let's talk about him.
Yeah,
You ever met him?
I was the first legislator to endorse DeSantis. I firmly believe in him, and because of that, like I don't want to be seen around Trump and just out of respect to DeSantis. And
sure. But
the only reason Trump is still like the front runner, I think, in the Republican Party is because the Democrats have made him a victim. There's when you throw indictment after somebody and none of it sticks, like that's a lot of evil that's happening.
Sure.
And we all understand that that's wrong. And so that's what's propping Trump up right now. It's not because he was the most competent Republican presidential candidate right now. I think DeSantis is the most competent, and that's who I want in office, is the most competent person. But that, I think, is out of control, is the slander that people do to one another on the federal level, because at the end of the day, they don't have to be accountable for it. There will come a day, but that's my Christian philosophy. But it's disgusting, and I sense a little bit of it in my position. But I've been to Washington a few times now. I can see why they call it a swamp, and that's an impossible position to be in.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone. I mean, Trump, DeSantis. I mean, anyone trying to get in there. It just seems like it's much messier than local politics. I mean, you're making local politics sound like it's structured. There's things working. It's working here in the state of Iowa. At least there's bipartisan efforts. There's conversations. There's relationships happening. But yeah, you get on the federal scene and it's just like, whoa.
It's disgusting.
And okay, this is America. Let's not pretend that America isn't a significant world influence, So you have more than just your district to worry about. You have the entire state. But then Fed, okay, maybe they've got the world to worry about, but still, it seems strange what's going on. And maybe it's always been strange. Maybe I've just had my eyes woken up.
I think it's always been strange. And actually, some people say this is the most divisive time in American history. And now I'm going to paint a little better picture for you. We did go through a civil war once.
There's been some crazy times. Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have died and spilt blood. And right now, what do we talk about? Usually transgender issues or, just things that is not life. Like, yes, these are serious things that we're having conversations on, but when I look back at throughout history and World War II and stuff like that, oh my gosh, people, I think hate used to be a lot worse than what it is right now. And so I think we're blessed. We're still the greatest nation in the world.
You believe that?
I believe that wholeheartedly. Yeah. I am so proud, and I'm even more proud as an Iowan. I believe in the power of state government more than federal government. States established the federal government. People forget that. I believe that the states have the power to pass a balanced budget amendment. We've talked about that for decades. Nobody ever does it on the federal level. So I think we have to be the parent in the room and say, we will force you guys, we will amend the Constitution and say that you will have a balanced budget and get your act together. It's laid out in Article 5 of the Constitution, but nobody has ever enacted it. And it's
all the states united could do that, or what would that take?
It would take 2/3 of the state to call for a convention, and at the convention, they propose amendments to amend the Constitution, and then that has to be voted on by 36 states to amend the Constitution. But Article 5 lays it out, and everybody just glosses right over it. And so one of my top issues is Convention of States. I'm the sponsor in the Senate. I've gotten 24 votes for it. I need 26. And the fear is that some of my real conservative friends are like, well, this could be a runaway convention. They might do away with the Second Amendment and stuff like that. And they're just so fearful of touching the Constitution. They treat it like the Bible, where you and I believe that God's word is God's word and you can't change it. They look at the Constitution the same way. It's like, no, the Constitution can be changed, but there's a process by which to do it, and I am proposing that process.
Fascinating. Have you heard Warren Buffett's solution to the deficit? It's just one of those social media videos, but he says, I could solve the federal budget issue in 5 minutes, he said. And he passed a bill that says whenever we have a debt, no one in Congress gets paid. And then he said it would be solved in a moment because they want to get paid. And so you hash the budget out, you make sure it's balanced, and then you get paid again. Or I think he said that no one's up for re-election. He might have said that. You suspend their pay, and then you're not available to get re-elected. Yeah. Which, can we throw that around? Is that a little too strong language?
No. I think he's right on to something. Usually in that conversation, you also have the conversation about term limits. But I some people are scared to have this conversation. I don't care. If you're going to have term limits, you better term out the staffers as well. Because I'll give you an example. Here in the state of Iowa, I got elected. I go to the Capitol. I serve on Human Resource Committee, Ag, Natural Resource, a whole host of committees. There's really only one thing I know. That's corn and beans. And outside of that, I don't really know a lot about hospitals and medical policy and stuff like that. So we have a research staffer who is in charge of that. And I go to that research staffer, I'm like, hey, teach me about healthcare. Right away, they're shaping my mind according to how he thinks.
Sure.
And that's a lot of power.
Yeah.
And so imagine if I was termed out here in Iowa after 8 years, and let's say I caught something that, wait a second, he's not right on this issue. And then all of a sudden, him and I don't have a good relationship because I don't agree with him. All he has to do is wait for me to get termed out. Then he can wait for the new senator to come in and shape his mind.
And that's fascinating.
So if that's the case in Iowa, how worse is that in Washington? And oh my goodness, I tell you what, if we had term limits without terming out the staffers in Washington, our country's done.
Well, I love that. There's a twist. That's a thought I've never thought of in my entire life, you know, and just not knowing exactly how it all works. I'm fascinated with just everything you're bringing to the table here. I love it. I love knowing what's really going on.
So like Chuck Grassley, for example.
He's been around for a long time.
I'm really happy. I'm really glad to have Chuck Grassley there, because he has more knowledge about Washington than anybody else. And if there's, I don't want everybody to be like Chuck Grassley, but I do want at least one Chuck Grassley in Washington that's been there for a long time.
Right on. You betcha. You betcha. So, man,
we went down a lot of rabbit trails.
It was good. It's what we signed up for, you know. And so, outside of politics, you know, what do you do? What do you do for fun? I mean, you have time. You have time. You have free time. This doesn't like consume your life, right? Being in politics, or does it?
Oh, that's a tough question. I love. I still serve a little bit at Trinity Lutheran on Monday mornings. I do a discipleship class with the 6th or 8th graders. I just completed the last class last Monday. I usually do it for a full semester before session, but things are starting to get a little more, or I'm starting to have a little more responsibility at the Capitol. But that's my hobby. I love golfing, and for about 10 years, I didn't really do much with it. And at the start of this year, I made the determination, like, I want to take lessons. I want to get good. Like, I never was good. I loved it. And so this year I took that pretty seriously. I was taking lessons about every other week down in Des Moines.
Right on. Harder or easier than roping cattle golfing?
A lot harder.
A lot harder. Ooh.
Yeah.
I didn't think you'd say that.
Yeah. And roping's not too hard. But the other hobby, I do still enjoy riding horses, but I don't like just going out by myself or anything like that. What I love doing is if somebody has never rode horses, if any of you have never rode, you're more welcome to come up and I'll take you riding. So I love giving people new experiences like that. So.
You bet. Yeah, that's good. Do you do any social media, or like, do you watch Netflix? Do you have a show or a thing, or do you kind of stay away from all that sort of stuff?
I haven't had, quote, television for quite a few years now, but this past year I didn't realize with my Amazon Prime account that I could stream different things.
Yeah.
And so I've just been watching documentaries all the time. Right now I'm watching a documentary on Martin Luther, you know, during the Reformation. And so I enjoy that. Outside of that, you know, I probably should watch a little bit more, because when it comes to like national news, like I am so separated from what's happening. And sometimes when people are having conversations about Biden or whatever, like I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And that's not completely healthy either.
Well, hey, there's a balance, right?
Yeah.
You need to know a little bit, but you better not be consumed by it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. If a young person, I mean, your age or younger, wanted to get into politics, because you always need more good people in politics, right? Like, it's not like, oh, we're good right now, we don't need anybody else, right? How would you say they should get started to get elected or to get in the know?
Yeah, that's interesting, because there's certain groups out there, and I don't completely agree with them, that they try to recruit young people to run for office. And I've seen some of these organizations operate, and they're picking people that are looking for purpose and meaning, and then they think, oh, let's run for office. That's not really healthy, right?
Sure.
You want genuine public servants in these offices. And I think the key is you look for the kids that have been, you know, are active in your church, that have parents that are encouraging them to that servant's heart. And we all have those types of people that we know are just great people that love people. Just keeping an eye on them and how they operate, and encouraging them to step into leadership roles. And most of the time, the best people to run for office are the ones that question it. So if you say, hey, I think you should be on the Webster County Farm Bureau, and they're like, oh, you know, I don't know if I'm good enough for that, or I don't know if I can really add to that. Like, those are the people you want.
Sure.
Because they're humble, mm-hmm. and they recognize like their limitations. And so I think we just need to keep encouraging one another, keep encouraging kids to be those public servants. And when they have proven themselves to be problem solvers, and a spot opens up on city council, school board, whatever, find a spot for them, because those are the people you need. And then if they prove themselves in that role, encourage them to run for a higher office. And I don't think we do enough of that, encouraging one another. And I think that is the key to developing future politicians.
Right on.
Yep.
Would you got to have tough skin? I mean, do you feel like you're built a little different to handle it? Or do you think, is it something anyone can handle?
If somebody can handle school board or manage a co-op or manage a business, anything customer service related, if they can handle those positions, they can easily handle my job. And actually, I would say from that regard, as a farmer, I was only really responsible to God, my dad, because he's the boss, and my family. When you're a manager of a co-op or a school superintendent, and you can handle those relationships and that chaos, oh my goodness, like those are the guys that you want in office.
Right on.
And so unfortunately, a lot of school board members get burned out. They've had a lot of hard conversations. They've been called a lot of names, and then they quit. And maybe they weren't cut out for it, if they quit. But I think we all know that one or two people that can handle it, and then we need to keep an eye on them and give them an opportunity.
Yeah, handle it and do it well, right? Because there's people who can handle it, but they're brash, and their tact is just missing a step, and you end up creating enemies, even though you did something good. Versus the art of it is doing good things, but yet also, not that it's all about keeping the peace, but yet keeping the peace, working through conflict, right?
Blessed are the peacemakers.
That's what Matthew, right?
Matthew.
Absolutely. Beatitudes.
And my biggest regret so far in office is when I first came in, I was way too insecure. And when you're insecure, you say and do stupid things. Ironically, those were the times that I said things that I shouldn't have said, or maybe hurt somebody's feelings. And I was not being a peacemaker in those moments, and those are the moments that I regret the most.
Have you ever taken the Enneagram? Do you know what that is? The just kind of personality test right there? No. You're either a type 9 or a type 2. Are you?
Yeah.
Or any personality test. There's this other thing called True Colors. The color test. You're a green, blue, yellow, or orange, I think.
I think I've, what's one with you're a ENTJ?
That is Myers-Briggs.
Yeah, I've taken that one. Yeah.
Right on.
Do you know what you are?
So
Remember?
Yeah, but I wasn't real strong in any of the categories. So
Same.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very close to 50% for most of them.
No kidding.
Yeah, nothing was higher than like 65.
So does that mean you have more of a agreeable personality, I'm guessing?
I'm an ENFP. I don't know if that means a whole ton to you, but I am also like a 2 on the Enneagram. So it's the helper or the campaigner is the different names for those 2 personality types. And that makes me laugh. But
yeah,
I tend to get along with most people.
So like, do you listen to Jordan Peterson and stuff?
Fair amount, yeah.
Have you listened to
I haven't a ton, but
okay.
Hearing from the guys in our friend group, yes.
Well, so he talks about agreeable personalities and disagreeable personalities. So like most men are more disagreeable, women are more agreeable. Democrats are more agreeable usually, and most of them guys in prison. There's a reason there's more men in prison because they have more disagreeable personalities, right? It's not sexism that there's more men in prisons.
Just fact, just looking at the data that's available. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so what I've noticed in politics, though, is I'm an extremely agreeable person. Like I don't want conflict, but that's where I'm so appreciative of my faith, is because there are lines that were instilled that you don't cross, and so some people think I'm a disagreeable person, and truthfully, like I'm a little softy inside that doesn't I don't want people like angry at each other and stuff, but I realize that it's going to happen. But
I'm going to vote 9.
Peacemaker. Yeah. That's the nickname of the Enneagram. Type 9 is the peacemaker. So, which maybe you are, maybe you're not. Type 8 is also the challenger, where you challenge the status quo and all of that. And I I feel like maybe it's most people, maybe it's me, maybe it's just me. It's you default to shy away from conflict because it's uncomfortable, But that's something I feel like I've learned in my own personal journeys to try to lean into it, not just stir it up and get angry and lean into conflict, but like to try to solve it peacefully or get to the heart of the matter. Because when someone's angry is just a symptom of something else, right? Mm-hmm. So it's about what's behind the anger, not the anger itself. And that's helped me with parenting, I suppose, right there. But yeah, conflict is not bad. Things should be hashed out. Yeah, I'm happy we have a rotunda to talk about these things.
Sure, yeah. So. I mean, there's just some personalities that right away you can see that they thrive on conflict, mm-hmm. and those guys you just got to build relationships with them, but then encourage them to hold back.
Sure.
Like, there could be some bad reasons why they're trying to get conflict. Maybe they're trying to get the spotlight, mm-hmm. and it's all about them. Mm-hmm. And you can spot those people pretty quickly, but there's not a lot of them down at the Capitol. But yeah, like what we've talked about, there is a time for war, and there's a time for peace. Like I love that proverb, mm-hmm. And that's what I appreciate about Governor Reynolds and DeSantis is those are the type of people that I think know when to get the sword out, and it's time to go to war. So,
on that note, is there a Democrat that you would say, you know what, Philip, you should get them on the podcast and just have a conversation just like this with? Would you be comfortable name dropping someone?
Sure. Or let's see. So like Mark Campbell, he's a county supervisor from Webster County. He was the one that encouraged me to run for office, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been here. And he is one of the most amazing public servants I've ever met. Within this district, Greg Picklop from Boone, he's a Democrat, but like he's pro-life, pro-gun, so him and I align on that. But I think he's an amazing human being. And down at the Capitol, there's not too many around here, but one of my good friends I respect is Isaiah Knox. He's a new Democrat from Des Moines, and I guarantee you he'll be a name that sticks around for a long time.
Right on.
But locally, I guess I just don't know too many Democrats.
Well, no, absolutely not. No, but yeah, that's good. Or
I wish I did, but they don't want to talk to me, so.
Maybe they will. Maybe they will now. I'm interested in just all conversations of all sorts. So I appreciate you bringing your perspective, and I hope to get more. And yeah, that's good.
I appreciate it. This is so much fun.
Absolutely. First podcast? How many have you done?
This is my first one. I was nervous.
Sure. Yeah.
But I love these because there's a reason the last 10 years on YouTube. Like I think podcasts have been one of the best things that's happened to our generation.
Yeah.
That's where we sort out our thoughts and we're more vulnerable on podcasts. And I think it's a more, a conversation that's laced with integrity, more so than there's only so many words you can put in a newspaper article.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's awesome.
Lindsay said it earlier too, your tone, your inflection, your body language, all that counts. That's a big part of communication. So I like the video because we get to see each other and interact a little bit. You get to see me and understand all of my hand movements and things like that. But yeah,
shoulder roll.
That's good. You've got a big event coming up with DeSantis and Governor Reynolds here in Jefferson. Yeah. Yep. Do you want to just?
Yeah. So one thing I've always heard from Jefferson is its own economy. Like Jefferson people, like they're so tight knit. I love it. Like, and one thing that they've always said is that they always feel left out of politics. And I'm like, okay, I need to do better than use my influence to try to get people into Jefferson. But it's just far enough away from Des Moines that it's hard to do that.
Just a little too far. I wish we were 42 minutes away, not an hour and 2 minutes away.
40 minutes would be a game changer.
Yeah.
So yeah, with the there's only a few places that are nice enough to have a large event, and Wild Rose Casino is one of them. And so for my campaign launch, I was like, well, let's have it in Jefferson. And so Governor DeSantis and Reynolds, I'm so honored that they said that they would do my event. They don't do many events like that. And also got a band. They're called the B Twins. They're so entertaining. And we're gonna have fish, chicken. So everybody's gonna get a full stomach, and it should just be a fun night. But it's on December 12th, and I don't want cost to turn anybody away, but I am investing a lot into this event. So the general admission is $75. Most people are getting tables. A table sits 8 people for $500, and that's one thing in politics is it takes money to run, and so I got to raise a little money. So
Yeah, I want the people to know, I suppose. Am I endorsing you? I don't know. You're here at my table. I'm not necessarily endorsing you, but it's just like, hey, you got a thing going on. I would do that with anybody that was sitting in front of me. You've got an event. It's about your
Well, I truly believe our future president is coming to Jefferson, and if people don't want to come to the event and they want to meet DeSantis and Reynolds, like I'll do my best to try to set up a side meeting.
Yeah.
So then you don't have to give me money if you don't like me. So
Well, right on.
Yep.
Yeah, DeSantis was here. He was at Bet and Bev's not long
Yeah.
ago. You know, he was at a local restaurant and for free.
Yep.
Anyone could have walked in and said hello. I don't know if there was Secret Service or something like screening people. Probably that's how it works, right?
No, actually, I think that's another amazing thing about American politics is the accessibility to these guys. Like in that situation that you just said, there are definitely Secret Service around. You don't know where they're at, but they're not. You're not going through a metal detector. You're not, being vetted very much. And to me, that's so wonderful that we still live in a society where you can approach your leaders and have a conversation.
Well, also it's awesome that Secret Service is around and you might not know. Like, I don't know. I got like a little Jason Bourne sensation right there. Like, don't try anything, people. Don't try anything.
These guys are so good. Like you think that they dress in regular clothes, which is to be expected, but they also interact with the crowd in such a way that you definitely don't know who they are.
That is awesome.
You expect them to stand in the corner and just be stone-faced.
Yeah, like all the movies and stuff, but
that's
it's
not the
not
case.
like that. No.
I feel like it's marshals on a plane. Like you don't know that that's what they
Yes.
are. They just look like a traveler, but same thing.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you one more thing and it's gone. So that you should just outro music us right there. And yeah, man, thanks. Appreciate
so
it. Absolutely.
Appreciate
Hope to do
you.
it again sometime.
Yep.
And I remember it was, dude, DeSantis or Reynolds, will they do a podcast?
I don't know.
I mean, I feel like,
I can at least get you. I'll try to set up a media thing at the December 12th thing, and
dang,
I don't know if you can set up very easily at the casino, but
or even a 12-second clip. I mean, can I just take a video with me? And
sure.
Yeah.
We'll set something up. It's probably gonna have to be at the casino though.
Sure.
So, yeah, I can definitely do something.
Cool.
All right.
Sweet.
Cool.
Cool.
Maybe.
I'm going to say cool one more time because cool. That's it. Right on. You got double music going on, Lindsay. What you up to? You up to no good there,
There's
homegirl.
just a lot of buttons.
Anyway,
We're gonna say bye now.
bye. We're out. See you next time. Thank you. Adios.
Thanks.